It's NFL Scouting Combine Week. What's important, what's not, and who has the most to gain? We're going to break that all down today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make us your first listen every single day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Joe, happy National Start of Combine Week to you. Did you do the sports reference Wordle, whatever it is?
Oh,
did you do yours yesterday?
I did mine yesterday. We had Bills on there yesterday.
I guess I did today's then last night. You said it updates it. You got me new on this while you came down to my house this past weekend.
Yeah, 5 a.m. every day it updates. I usually
5 a.m. I thought you said 5 p.m.
No, 5 a.m. So it's part of my going to bed routine. I just kind of do it, and then I don't know. It helps me just wind down a little bit. So,
well, then I got a new one waiting for me.
Yeah, every day at 5 a.m. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm not in my regular recording setup. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, I am in downtown Indianapolis. I am about 3 blocks from the Indiana Convention Center. Almost went to the Pacers game last night.
Almost.
My flight was delayed by about an hour leaving Philadelphia for no reason whatsoever. So I assume it was incoming flight coming from somewhere else. And I missed the start of the game. And it's like, man, do I really want to? Tickets are like $8.
Could have went to Game Time, found last minute tickets.
I could have gone. Yeah. And because they have it up to an hour after the game starts, they still sell tickets. But I didn't want to show up at a game towards halftime. I've never been that. Like that. That's ruins a game day experience for me. I don't know about you, but if I agree. Go to a game and I'm not, I miss half the game, then I'm like, why would I even bother at this point?
Okay, real quick word association. The first player that you think of when you think of the Indiana Pacers?
Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller. Okay, very good. I think it's probably most people would say.
Boom goes the dynamite. Reggie Miller.
For me, it was Jermaine O'Neal. I'm not sure why that was the name, but that was the name. Roy Hibbert's another one. Probably because he's on my fantasy basketball team back in the day.
Reggie Miller goes to 3 and boom goes dynamite. You ever see that video?
No, never seen it.
No, I'll send you that one when we're done here. Because it's some sports broadcasting student, and he's like working on like his like Sports Center highlight reel, like commentating the game.
Yeah.
And every shot that goes in, he said, "Boom goes the dynamite."
Oh man, have you ever done that? Have you ever like watched the game and then tried to do the play-by-play? I think you probably do fairly well with it. I struggle a lot with that. It's harder
with football. I think it's easier with other sports, just because football. Yeah, because football, you're so reliant on there's play, break in action, and what is shown on the TV during the break in action, like, is kind of cued by the commentary. Instead, so if I'm trying to blindly take the cues from what they're putting on the screen, I think it makes it a little bit harder to do with football than it would be for other sports.
I think my familiarity with football and the players makes it easier for me.
Well, but I mean, like, the actual flow of like having a good play-by-play commentary or color commentary.
Shall we talk about the NFL Scouting Combine? Yeah. Sidebars.
Right?
Sometimes they happen. We don't ever schedule them, but it just happens sometimes. The NFL Scouting Combine. Kyle Crabbs, you are there in Indianapolis. I am not.
Indianapolis.
Yep. My wife is very, very pregnant, and I'm not going to be away from her right now. So appreciate you being there to have the boots on the ground. But let's start this conversation by talking generally about the value of the NFL scouting combine. I feel like this has come under siege a bit in recent years, but I still find it to be a very valuable piece of the scouting process in evaluating the players. Just your general thoughts on the value of the combine.
The longer I've gone, the more I think there's different people with different interests at the combine. And for like head coaches who choose not to go, and I believe you have a list of coaches who elected not to come. And that list includes Matt Lafleur, Kyle Shanahan,
Sean McVay. Yep.
Yeah. Who else?
Robert Saleh and Mike McCarthy.
I don't know, man. Like, part of the value of pro personnel, be it football, like your football brain trust, your scouting department, or the coaches, it's having that FaceTime and the meetings with the players. And maybe those coaches prefer to have like it vetted a little bit, where like
give me what matters most. Yeah.
Do you guys do the interviews for the first round, and then when we kind of get a feel for who the right guys are, then I'll be involved in that, because obviously they have pro days and visits where they can still take part in all that. But that for me is from an NFL team perspective the most valuable part. It's not the sensationalized running around doing athletic testing. The athletic testing, there's certain tests that matter for certain position. There's no position where every test matters. But for teams specifically, it's all that stuff that we don't get, I think, is the most important stuff in Indianapolis.
Yeah, medicals, FaceTime with the prospects.
Can we also just agree, if you come in and you fail a blood test in Indy, that's a flag, because you've known for months that the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take you off the plane, they're going to take you to the hospital, you're going to get a physical, and you're going to get a drug test.
Yeah. It's concerning. Can't help but notice the common denominator of these coaches not attending. They're all Shanahan disciples minus one Mike McDaniel, right? He's there. I mean, all of them, right? All of them except for McDaniel aren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess D'Amico Ryans, I haven't heard that he's not there, but like this is to me very much a trend that these Shanahan disciples are the ones that are stiff arming the combine. I think a lot of the most beneficial components of the combine are pieces of information that we don't get, right? It's the interviews, it's the medicals. But I will say this, that something that you said, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, that's always stuck with me in terms of the way that we evaluate prospects based on the information that we get, is that it's risk assessment, right? You're taking all of the variables of an evaluation and you're foiling that against historical norms, and to give yourself the best or the most likely outcomes, right? You kind of know that, okay, football players at this position that have these measurables, that have these athletic testing, this is the probability of that person reaching this point in their career. And I think you continue to give yourself the best opportunity to be correct on prospects. The more that you do that, the more that you're aware of what those trends are and how you apply that to your evaluation. So I think that generally speaking, the best football players are also great athletes. That doesn't mean they all are.
Right.
But I think you have to be able to work through that information, figure out what's important, and give yourself the best opportunity to be right based on the information that we actually get.
Can we also talk about, I said this on Locked On Dolphins yesterday, but I really physically am incapable of caring less about the draft rumors that come out of Indianapolis.
Oh, God, so annoying, yeah.
But the NFL free agency start of league calendar year rumor mill, I think absolutely has value, because that is the thing that is 2 weeks away.
Yep.
So like everybody comes here and congregates, and you can't legally tamper, but agents are here and agents talk to agents, and everybody has conversations in as robust of a way as you possibly can, while kind of skirting that line and flirting with that line of if it's tampering or not. But there's a reason the legal tampering window opens, and teams have framework of deals done with players, and they get announced very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's because these conversations indirectly are happening here in Indianapolis. So that's absolutely something that I'm actively looking for, is what is the pro personnel free agency buzz here in Indy.
If you attend the NFL scouting combine as media and you don't come away with knowing a handful of free agent deals that are going to happen as soon as the legal tampering period opens, then you are a hermit that sat in your hotel room and didn't speak to anybody, because that information absolutely circulates. And I think that's a good call out. That it's very useful for that piece of the equation. All right, folks, in just a second here, I want to talk to Kyle about Marvin Harrison Jr. and his decision to not participate and kind of his approach to the draft process, in addition to some big tests that are going to matter a lot this week. So be sure to stick with us. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever considered what you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you exercise, read, spend some time with friends and family members? Maybe you'd catch up on some sleep. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's most important to you and to make that a priority. Therapy can help you find out what matters most to you so you can spend more time doing it. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. Therapy empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
You know what the worst thing about traveling and doing podcasts and stuff is?
Everything.
Your technological output and input and setup getting interrupted. Is my camera bugging for you too right now?
It's a little flashy, but the most important thing is you sound good and we can see you. So
okay, yeah. I know if I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, Kyle, just unplug the darn camera and.
Well, hey, listen, I hope the folks can appreciate the efforts of you being there, and maybe that the everything about the typical production value of the podcast isn't quite what it is.
Everything's great except for just I'm a little grainy and it's flashing.
Listen, I mean, there's usually a lot of Dolphin stuff in the background, so I feel like maybe
some people might be an upgrade.
Yeah, some people might be a fan of the new setup. So
okay, great. Well, then let's talk Marvin Harrison Jr., who will not be a Miami Dolphin.
No, I don't think he will be. Obviously, the news coming out on Monday that he's not doing anything, right? No agent, not participating. And obviously, that's met with a lot of different reactions. The biggest reaction that I saw was the immediate people that said, well, here comes Malik Nabers. He's going to absolutely jump Marvin Harrison Jr. And then it wasn't much longer before it came out that Malik Nabers wasn't doing anything either, right? So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in this draft. I don't find that to be particularly close. His involvement or not in lack of involvement in anything going on in the next 3 months is not going to change that. The tape is what the tape says to me. But I think this is a storyline worth talking about.
Yeah, I applaud Marvin Harrison Jr. for keeping the main thing, and I applaud you for keeping a straight face through Rutgers.
I got through that, brother. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I had the most mature moment of my life right there.
I was trying to adjust the cord in the back of the camera. There's certain players that come into their junior college football season, and people are saying to them, just don't play this year. Just sit out. You've proven what you need to prove.
Leonard Fournette.
And then people have that mentality, and then they want to get upset that Marvin's not going to test for things that don't directly correlate to him playing football after he did play last season. I don't know. It's very strange to me how they can say, "Oh, don't get hurt. It's not worth getting hurt." Well, what happens? We see people who get hurt in combine testing and pro days. We see people that have soft tissue injuries that completely derail their rookie season. We talk about the draft grind. Ask any rookie from this past year about the grind of playing a season, immediately converting into training for something completely different, and then getting into OTAs and training camp and a full 17-plus game season, which is longer than anything you've ever done before, and ask them what their body feels like after that stretch. So for Marvin Harrison Jr. to have the perspective to say, tape's tape, guys. Y'all know who I am. You'll have the GPS tracking. Yeah. You'll have the testing numbers at Ohio State. I'm going to keep the primary focus on football. Not every player can do this.
Nope.
But Marvin Harrison Jr. can. And I applaud him for doing it.
Marvin Harrison Jr.'s RAS score, relative athleticism score, is going to be at least a 9.5, right?
Oh, it's not going to exist.
But I'm just saying, like, there's no question in your mind that it's at least a 9.5. Okay, so he's an elite tier athlete. Okay, cool. Got it. But again, yeah, not everybody can do that. But if you can, and you're Marvin Harrison Jr., and you can avoid what you just talked about in terms of coming out of the season, the all-star circuit, the draft circuit, you're training to jump and run and interview instead of just playing football, that's going to help him a ton this coming season.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, you remember the story that Deion Sanders tells about the combine, where was it the Jets came in and had this, or the Giants came in and they
were too low in the order. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had this big book for their meeting and they wanted him to go through it. And he's like, wait, when y'all picking? And they said like, what, 8 or 11 or whatever it was. He's like, I'm not going to be there. And he like gets up and walks out of the meeting. Right. Like, and it's such a charming story because of who Deion is. Yeah. But not every player can do that. No. Right.
Justin Gilbert can't do that. Right. Like it's not all the same.
Right. And Marvin Harrison Jr. just feels like he's going to be in that stratosphere of a player. Yeah. And this is a less extreme example than Deion walking out of a meeting with a team because they wanted him to spend too much time prepping and he knew he wasn't going to get drafted by him.
Let's talk about some big tests, stuff that you're really paying attention to. I'll start with one, and I'd assume this is high on your list as well. It's Jayden Daniels, the LSU quarterback. Want to know what he weighs, right? I think he's – does LSU list him at like 6'4", 205, 210, something? Yeah, that ain't what he is, man. That's not it. I hope it is. I hope that's what he weighs. I don't think he does. And if he does, we young man's gonna have to take a piss at some point, real quick after that weigh-in. So I think that's an important one. Not that the NFL hasn't picked small quarterbacks high. I mean, Bryce Young was just number 1 overall pick. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Like it's the NFL has told you that they're willing to overlook size dynamics. But I think for a player like Jayden Daniels, who is very athletic, that thrives on running and extending plays, that does take his share of licks in college, not the same as Lamar Jackson, who didn't do that. I'm interested to see how he shows up in terms of weight, and if he's going to be 180, 190 pounds, 200, wherever that falls, it's going to be fascinating for me.
I have my eyes squarely fixated on a singular test, and it might be a record-setting time.
Okay.
Do you have any idea where I'm going here?
No.
Are you familiar with how many players in the history of the combine have ran a sub 3.8 short shuttle?
I would guess not many at all.
3.
Yeah.
We might have our 4th. Roman Wilson, wide receiver, University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Has been reported to run a 3.77 3-cone drill. It's like Kevin Casper, Dunta Robinson, and one other player are the only sub 3.8 short shuttles. And Michigan Strength and Conditioning has Roman Wilson in that stratosphere. And it's a loaded wide receiver class. I get it. He's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'10 and a half, 190. But Roman Wilson, I'm not ready to put him on the stratosphere of the love that I had for Puka Nacua last year. And that's obviously such an extreme example because Puka goes to the one team that probably gives him the opportunity to be what Puka Nacua was last year.
I wouldn't even have brought that up if I were you.
But Roman Wilson, I think I don't know how high he goes because of the wide receiver class and some of the other different body types that exist. But if he runs a 3.75 short shuttle, which like is within the realm of possibility according to the Michigan Strength and Conditioning Program, like that's a big divider for me because that is one of those tests where and he's reported 4.3 speed guy too.
Yeah,
he can run everything.
I think the Tyler Lockett comps make a lot of sense to me with Roman Wilson.
Shout out Jim Nagy.
Yeah, I love that comp and and uniquely qualified to make that comp, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, he can do that. If that's a similar arc, I'm not thinking twice about Roman Wilson going high. I'd pick him high, no questions asked. You mentioned what you said he's 5'10", 190?
5'104", 190.
Well, there's a wide receiver that I fear is like 6'2", 180. And that's Troy Franklin from Oregon. That's another way in, another lean guy that I'm anxious to kind of see what he comes in at. And if he's a little heavier than you expect, how does he run? Right. So we'll see how those things foil together. On the other side of these weigh-ins, Tavondre Sweat, the defensive tackle from Texas,
he didn't flipping a little bit.
Well, he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl, which is an unprecedented thing. And now it's a month or so, close to a month afterwards, he's going to have to get on the scale.
Okay, the second number on that weigh-in has to be a what for you to feel good? A 3?
Oh, if he gets a 3, that might be a win for him.
Right. But I mean, like that's surely you didn't weigh in Mobile because you were 380 and you need to cut to 350, right? Like if you're going to not weigh in and then cut, get your money's worth and cut.
The bottom line is this is a concern. The weight's going to be is a concern. It already is.
Jordan Davis 2.0?
Maybe.
I mean, he's not going to get drafted in that stratosphere.
Right. So yeah, those are. I know that I went with like size for my answers here because I don't know, that's what I'm paying attention to the most. I feel like those are going to be big qualifiers for those players. All right, stick with us, folks. We're going to talk about players with the most to gain here in the final block, so stick with us. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Look, Roy Hibbert, Reggie Miller, Jermaine O'Neal, they're not walking through those doors, but whatever. I couldn't tell you current Pacers
I was going to say,
who they got. They got Victor Oladipo. Who do they got on there? Who's on the team? They got Paul George. Whoever's on the Pacers. You can vote on them or bet on them to go over under on the projected.
Pascal Siakam, of course.
That guy, yeah. Over on the assists.
TJ McConnell, of course.
Ah, yes. The great Pacers of the current time. Do they have a winning record? Are they good? I have no idea. But if you do,
I'm going to check now.
If you do, and they're playing the Raptors, and you think they're going to win, go to FanDuel, get in on the action. They got a great deal for you right now. New customers, $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
The 33-26, 7th place in the Eastern Conference Indiana Pacers.
Let's go. Is that ahead of the play-in situation that they have in the NBA?
No, I think the play-ins. I think 7 through 10 is the play-in.
Oh, okay. So you want the 6 is the one you want to be, I guess.
Yes, that currently is the Miami Heat at 32-25.
Miami Heat. They got who's that guy they got that used to play for the Sixers? Jimmy, he's still good. He's on the team.
Buckets. He got suspended for a game for a
fight. Is Eric Spoelstra still their coach, right?
Eric Spoelstra just got like a big contract extension
for the Heat, right?
Yes.
Like this is one of the longest tenured coaches in sports. Him, the Spurs guy, Greg Popovich.
Spoelstra's a stud.
You got to hand it. He's had a lot of different cores come through Miami, and they seem to be pretty good. So, all right, nobody came here to listen to us talk about the Pacers and Heat, but
we're showing our diversity a little bit. Spoelstra has a 59% win percentage in both the NBA regular season and the playoffs.
So did the Heat go from Pat Riley to Eric Spoelstra? Mm-hmm. Is that one of the great coaching transitions in history?
Yeah, the Miami Heat head coach basketball position is the Green Bay Packers quarterback position of the NBA.
or like the Steelers head coaching job too.
Well, now it's gonna, that works too.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Spoelstra will be there another 20 years, and then they'll.
I know. I think he's only 40 years old now, right? He's looked the same.
He's 53.
Good Lord. What did he get that job when he was 30?
Spoelstra took the coach as a 38-year-old in 2008. Yes.
Wow. Good for him. All right, Kyle Crabbs, players with the most to gain. I would love to go first here because there's a player that I'm really fascinated in. I know. Look, I know it's shocking.
All right, go ahead.
I want to talk about Jaylen Wright, running back from Tennessee. I feel like what'd you say there?
I have a running back.
You do? Well, yeah. I'm glad you have a running back because I feel like we're just not talking about these running backs, and I need to get deeper into the class, but like just generally, I don't feel like there's a lot of discussion. Jaylen Wright seems like a guy that really intrigues me. 5'11", 210. He hit 23.6 miles per hour on the gun this season. He's 20 years old, which I love that about him. 44-inch vertical jump, according to Bruce Feldman. Like, I feel like he's going to put on a show this week, and in what feels like a very wide open running back class and crop, I feel like he can be a big-time riser.
The guy who I think just he doesn't need to hit those numbers. Because I think at the end of the day, being a good, you said most great football players are great athletes.
Yep.
But you don't have to be. And I think running back is one of those positions where I do think instincts and general feel gives you a little bit more of an advantage than just general athleticism. Because it's the feel of the mesh point in the backfield. Just give me like good athletic testing across the board, Blake Corum.
Mm-hmm.
If Blake Corum tests good, he doesn't need to test like Jaylen Wright, but if Blake Corum tests good, and he's been reported to run in like the 4.4s, and like that would.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that surprises you, right? Because I don't think I saw that on tape.
I thought his athletic profile was, and overall like build is like kind of like Devin Singletary.
Yes.
Who ran 4.66.
Now his cuts. He's not. I think he's more dynamic with his cuts than Singletary because Singletary's was that step frequency guy, like
7.32 3-cone. That's double the time of Roman Wilson.
So if Blake comes out and tests like that, I think he's got the best tape. He will have proven that he's healthy after the season-ending injury last 2022. I think that would lock him in for me as the top back in the class. So that's a player for me. Just test good, please.
How about Brock Bowers, right? I think anybody can watch Brock Bowers at Georgia and feel like this is a really, really good football player. But in terms of draft valuation, and we just saw Daniel Jeremiah mock him, like 18 to the Bengals or something like that, which I think maybe perked, got some people's attention. And then I thought DJ had a really good rant about, like, it's not just the dynamics of Brock Bowers. It's that, well, there's a dollar amount tied to these draft positionings. And are you really going to draft a tight end? And all of a sudden they're like one of the top 7 or 8 highest paid players at the position because the draft pay doesn't factor in position, right? It's the position that they play. It does factor in what position they are. For Brock Bowers is kind of a unique build, right? Like I don't know that he doesn't look like OJ Howard, right? He doesn't have that type of frame.
Right.
I think him testing very well could help nudge him back up a little bit. But I just, the point that I'm making here is I think that his draft positioning has a lot riding on how he tests and how he measures.
Yeah, I know there's people on both sides of that fence. There's people that have prospect fatigue with Brock Bowers, and there's people that are referring to Brock Bowers like this month as the greatest tight end prospect of all time. So, like, let's normalize a little bit. I tend to agree with you where I think it could be a nice shot in the arm for Brock Bowers in the midst of, well, you overthink, positional value. And like that stuff's real. It is real.
Yeah.
But, for Bowers, let's get a little excitement going for you. How about Amarius Mims from Georgia, who is healthy? He had an ankle issue. I believe he had tightrope surgery in season. I believe I saw our former colleague Jordan Reed say that just recently. He's going to do everything. And this is a guy who's got just, single-digit starts for his career. But I watched the tape and when he had 3 starts in August, and I texted you about him every day for 2 weeks. I'm like, did you watch Amarius Mims yet? Did you watch Amarius Mims yet? He's a really freaky dude. And in a freaky good offensive tackle class, this is the kind of thing that can start nudging you ahead of guys that have more playing experience, because there's the ceiling there and the unteachable element of offensive tackles. And you see teams covet elite athletes at that position with bad tape all the time, because it's like, oh, well, he's got all the things. We just got to put it together, as if it's that easy to do. And a Mims, even though there's inconsistencies because he's not been a long tenured starter, the tape is not bad. The tape is dominant at times. And the athleticism is like pop your eyeballs back into your sockets and pick your jaw up off the floor. So come out and show you're fully healthy. And I think for Amarius Mims, that really can push him to maybe a stratosphere where people don't expect in this tackle class for hierarchy.
How about these edge rushers, Kyle? I feel like the valuation is anywhere from like 10 to 30 when it comes to like this group of Dallas Turner, Latu Latu, Chop Robinson out of Penn State, Jared Verse, Florida State. I think this is going to help sort some of that out. But the guy that I really think it can help him the most is Chop Robinson. I'm not sitting here pounding the table for Chop Robinson. I'm just saying if he goes out and has the athleticism that he's rumored to have, especially the quickness, right? A lot of people think this could be the best first step in the class. Him validating that's going to give him some hype that I don't think is happening right now for him.
I was hoping you were going to say Bralen Trice from Washington.
Good player.
Good player. But I think the athletic profile is something that if he shows that he has a certain requisite of explosiveness that I am not necessarily sold that he has with, he's primarily a power win type player. If you show me that you've got a little bit more agility than maybe what my first impressions and first watches of you at Washington seem to suggest, I think that could push him up as well, because it's just, is he, I don't have a good example, but like the concern is that he's AJ Epinesa-esque with the explosiveness, right? Yeah. So very good player with good pass rush tape, but can you complement that and provide a full menu for offensive tackles to defend? I'm hoping we see that level of explosiveness with his testing.
Kam Kinchens, safety Miami. I think this is a big showcase for him. I think athleticism is kind of the overarching question there. And then the corners, right? I think corners, like it's a stopwatch position. You got to be athletic. Right. And I think all corners, it's going to matter a ton. I'm anxious to see Quinyon Mitchell, who I feel like has some athleticism that maybe will surprise some people. And
won't surprise me.
It won't surprise me either, but I think he's going to put up some big numbers.
I would not be surprised if that's a 4.3 something.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it.
So he's got some rundown stuff on tape, chasing stuff off the backside 50 yards downfield. It's just crazy good. So that is what we are looking for, or just some of it, this week in Indianapolis. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are locked on NFL Scouting. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here. You find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all again tomorrow.